Welcome to Private Equity Profits. Clifford Locks is a certified board of director, a trusted confidant to CEOs, C-level exec, and high-potential employees to help them clarify goals, unlock their potential, and create actionable strategic plans. Seth Green is the nation's foremost authority on growing your portfolio companies with direct response marketing. He is the founder of the direct response marketing firm Market Domination LLC, and he is an 8-time best-selling author who has been interviewed on NBC, CBS, Forbes Inc., CBS Money Watch, and many more. Cliff and Seth interview top players in the financial sector, focusing on private equity firms, venture capital companies, and family offices, discussing developments and trends shaping the industry. These experts will share with you how they've grown their businesses and increased profit, and how you can too. And now, here's your host, Cliff Locks.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Private Equity Profits Podcast. I'm Cliff Locks, your host. Today's guest is Eric Estevez, the branch manager of the Nations Lending Corporation. Nations Lending Corporation is one of the largest direct mortgage lenders in the U.S., originating more than $2 billion in loan volume annually. The company makes its mission of home loans made human an intricate part of the mortgage experience of offering tailored customer service and a variety of programs to suit nearly any home buyer's needs. Eric Estevez is graduated from the University of Miami with a degree in international finance and marketing, and was a 14-year leadership veteran for 2 Fortune 50 companies, Target and Walmart. While there, he started exploring entrepreneurial opportunities. He has a diverse background, as he's written a children's book, created a market for mobile apps, and then started investing in real estate, which led him to leave his corporate job and start a mortgage lending business with his father. Within 4 years, he built a team that produced $100 million in revenue and reached the top 1% earner in the U.S. He's now building other businesses while working from home, one of them being a virtual assistance outsourcing company and a music management company to help his daughter, who's a music recording artist. Eric, thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Cliff. It's a pleasure.
Same here. It's a pleasure, too. Tell me about your background and how you ended up in real estate.
Yeah, thanks for asking. I kind of grew up in real estate. So my father's a 25-plus year veteran. He was both a realtor and a mortgage loan originator. So I kind of, grew up in it. He owned some properties, multifamilies. So I understood the importance of investing in real estate early on, but I did not think that I was going to follow in his footsteps. Right. I went on to graduate with a international finance and marketing degree, and I worked in Wall Street for a summer. I wound up, taking on leadership positions and leading as large as 500 people at a time, within Target and Walmart. But the great thing is that, as being a top performer in these leadership positions, I was rewarded, stock options and restricted stock units, and that was my discretionary income, where I kind of started to dabble into the entrepreneurial space, because I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Now, one of the things, Cliff, I wasn't able to do that early on in my career because I graduated college at 21, and a couple of months later, my daughter, who's now 19, turning on 20, was born. So I had to just hit the ground running, right? I had to just earn. So I worked my way up, and then I was able to just start investing in different things, and knew that I wanted to work for myself. I didn't know what it was at that time. And then when I started investing in real estate, I started investing passively with friends of mine who were flipping properties in New York and the New Jersey area. And I started investing some of those RSUs, some of those stock options, and just learning. It was a college education for me, right? How to really understand these acronyms, right? Hard money and ARV and LTV and all this. And I started to really love it. And I did that a few times before I actually started flipping on my own. And when I started flipping and doing renovations, I fell in love with it, and I knew I had to leave the corporate job, and here I am today.
That's quite a career. One of the things we speak about is the next generation. So working with your dad is really positive. The other side is you went out, get yourself a fabulous education, and you went out and continued to learn. And I think that's really what it is, as a lot of our listeners are very high, ultra high net worth individuals, private equity, and the ability to, what do we do with the children? Yes, there's going to be a university education there, but that aside, should they come back to the business, or should they go out there and learn and work for somebody else for a period of time and then maybe consider, returning back out to the business? So I'm glad you had a great path. And once we have our children, it's amazing how it changes, hyper focuses us on what's important. I'm glad you're in a great place. What do you do to achieve rapid success in the mortgage real estate industry?
Well, I think there's some specifics, and you have to make sure that you continue to align yourself with great mentors and leaders, right? And anybody that wants to come into this industry, or any industry for that matter, I think having mentorships and coaches is something that everybody needs to have from the start. And I knew that working in Fortune 50 companies, I mentored people. I always had coaches. I always had mentors. So from day one, even without me knowing anything right about loans, and obviously I had my father as a resource, which helped me with that learning curve, right? But I paid for coaching from day one. I knew I wanted to be a top producer and a high income earner, and I wanted to take the base that my father had, because he was a one-man team, and I wanted to scale that, right? So I wanted to make sure that I had people in my corner that have already achieved that success, so I can get to that path a lot quicker. And I was able to take what I've learned in my 14-year career and not just scrap it. Even though it's a different industry, there's a lot of fundamentals that I learned being a leader. And one of the most important things is just you have to have the right people in order to scale. And that was one of my strengths. So I was able to bring that over into the mortgage industry, hire the right people, scale correctly. And, I think people in the real estate industry, you can work your butt off and be very successful, but the top percent earners in both real estate and mortgage loan originating, they have a team that they manage, right? So I was able to get there pretty quickly because of my past experience.
So the foundational knowledge you got working for some of the largest retailers in the world really help you continue to explore. And I think you brought up something really important, the concept of mentoring and using advisors and paying for that service. I think is very, very important for foundational, for senior executives, the family offices, and the next gen. In other words, get the resources you need in place, and you're learning from experts. The other concept is surround yourself with really, really bright people. Remove obstacles and leave them alone to do their great work. You don't need to micromanage people, and allow people to flourish, in their positions and grow, and get the goals setting down on paper. Some characteristics that really work. Talking about characteristics, what character traits are most important to success in real estate?
Again, I think these are characteristics that can be applied to any industry. I think the ability, you talked about learning and getting that education. I think that's key. I think those people that know that this is always a learning environment, right? Those people that are still the most successful are always continuously learning, because things are always changing, and you have to always be a student of it. And I learn from as many people as possible, even those people that don't have as much experience as I do in the mortgage industry, but they do have other experience, right? And I think you have to be open to learning, both from the people that are around you, but also signing up to courses and becoming certified mortgage advisor, and making sure that you're getting the proper information, because when you learn, right, and I've grown my business through educating people, right? Through doing seminars and adding value to my realtor referral partners by making sure that I'm available to teach them about products or about certain things. And what I found out, Cliff, is when you teach, the more you teach, the more you're learning, right? The better you become at just the subject matter that you are actually trying to explain. So I think being a student and always learning is a fundamental characteristic in real estate and mortgages and in any industry. And I think, I really want to talk about accountability, and being accountable is so hard, especially when you work for yourself. And as a mortgage loan originator, right, or a realtor, you're typically your own CEO, even though you might hang your license with a specific company, right? You have to be able to be accountable to your daily activities. And it's so easy when you are your own boss to forget about that and to not track that, right? So I think those people, and I've interviewed a lot of or top producers in the mortgage industry, in the real estate industry, and I host monthly masterminds so we can share with the
Excellent.
community what these individuals are doing. And they all do the same thing. They all hold themselves accountable. They are hyper focused on their numbers and on their activities, and they're able to pivot much quicker on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, instead of letting a month, a quarter, half a year go by, and now you don't make your goals. So you have to be really hyper focused, and you have to make sure you hold yourself accountable to whatever tasks you have to reach those goals.
That's very pungent. In other words, your ability, you probably picked that up in the university and also the two employers. You had some metrics that you were setting out there that could be called KPIs or OKRs. And the idea is we're going to set some targets. We're going to measure against it. We're going to make some corrective action. Sitting down with team members a couple of times a week to make sure that their expectations and your expectations are actually aligned. So you're bringing in some really important tool sets that really can help the family office or the businesses that our listeners are, working in. There's a portfolio of companies for the private equity, meaning they may own 14, 30, depending on how the size of the organization. And there's a lot of personalities involved in those portfolio companies, but the foundation you bring in is sound. All right. There has to be systems in place. Are you using any dashboards at this point? In other words, on the measurements of the OKRs or KPIs? What do you?
Oh yeah, we have. I think sometimes it's overload, right? We have to just know what dashboards, what information you're comfortable with, and stick to that. But we do have these measurements on a daily basis. Like for example, if I'm a branch manager and I want to know, right, the trajectory of where our business is at, I know how many credit pulls are being done on a daily basis, and I get an email right at 8 o'clock at night, right? So then that way I know, hey, this time last year, this is how many credit pulls we have, so we can help. Are we behind that? Are we in front of it? Where are we compared to our yearly goals? To be completely transparent, we're already in mid-February, and I set a goal in December, right, for this year. And to be quite honest, Cliff, I don't think we're going to make it already, right? I think that the market, right, has had some indications. We just had a CPI report a couple of days ago. So now I have to pivot. Now, on the other hand, right, that's just one of the good things about having a good foundation, good systems. Mortgage industry is my main business right now, but I'm able to go ahead now and build other businesses and hopefully achieve even more rapid success. So one of the things that you mentioned earlier is I've been building my daughter's music career, right? And my goal at the beginning of the year was to sign her to $1 million deal by the end of the year. And even though I had to shift my activities in the mortgage world and maybe have to readjust it and bring it downward, I upped it to 2 million for my daughter, because now we're making more traction. So that's why it's also good to diversify in businesses, because if one business isn't doing as well, you might be able to make up that loss in another business. So you always have to look at all your businesses and see where you're at and be able to just really look at the measurement, what's going on, what's the traction, so you can just make sure you pivot.
So the diversification has done well for you and your family. And the mortgage industry is not easy. I know we're in the middle of February of 2023, and where interest rates are going up, people are staying in their homes a little longer at this point. I don't think the foreclosure challenge is too much yet, but we're not sure. It's a little early to say anything.
We're going to see a slight uptick in foreclosures because of the moratorium, right? Because for a year plus, there were no foreclosures. So you're going to see an increase, but that's a false sense of, or is the world ending, right? It's not. What people realize is not only, do we have right now, I understand that people are a little bit scared of the interest rates, even though in January across the board, across the country, we saw a big jump in applications, because I think that shock of interest rates, right, no longer exists for people. They already know we're in this world. This is what it is, right? Is it better for me to purchase at a 6% interest rate than or rent, right? And I think it's about getting people educated. However, what I was saying prior is that now, right, we're not only in this interest rate environment, we're in an inventory issue, right, across the country. And, I'm in New Jersey and we're still having multiple bid situations in properties, right?
Okay.
So the fact is that there's still an inventory issue, even with these high rates. And I teach these classes all the time. And one of the great stats that people have to realize is that since the 1950s,
Mhm.
there's been between 20 and 22 million homes built every decade, right? So since the 1950s, between 2010 to 2020, only 5.8 million homes built. Big drop, right?
Big
So
deficit.
now we have population growth. We have the millennials, who's the second biggest generation after the baby boomers, who are now the ones buying properties, right? So now there's still a lack of inventory. So it's definitely challenging, right? We got to just continue pushing through. And if I have to
Very good.
readjust my goals in mortgages, where else can I pick that up, right?
It's interesting because I see some discussions coming out of the White House, and they're looking at the idea of shortage of inventory. You were kind enough, you just brought up the permitting process in zoning may change at the federal level that'll have an impact in the local market to be able to make more access to either denser, building, or maybe the ability to use a single family home and you can have a renter in it and override some of the local zoning that's in place. So we'll see. In other words, supply and demand is there's your price.
The market has to correct itself. And
Okay.
one of the things that I've been studying is this phenomenon of 3D printed homes and the phenomenon of these tiny homes and these boxable homes where
Okay.
you can order a house, right? And it'll get to you, right? And you can set it up in a few hours. And quite honestly, right, the legislation has to catch up to those zoning,
Excellent.
permits. And in New Jersey, right, New Jersey and New York are the last to adapt to those things sometimes.
Okay.
But if there's some federal regulations that are going to help and override some local zoning, that may help, right, us catch up to the lack of inventory that we have across the country.
Excellent. Well, we'll see how it works in the courts. At some point, I figure it's going to end up, working it through on the legislative side. I think their intentions are positive. We're just trying to get more housing inventories to keep the prices so our young people can actually acquire homes and become, have a wonderful life with their families in their own single family home. Or I guess, how much more multifamily home are we going to build? Probably many, many, many more units, and the big builders are also finding some inventory. I guess they had some shock when it came to lumber prices and copper, what it looked like, to be able to continue. How do you take those increases in inflation and put it into a housing unit? And things are in flux as you're building out the phases. So it's interesting. What are the biggest growth deterrents for real estate investors?
I think not being able to scale your business. I know a lot of real estate investors, let's say flippers, so you will, right, that buy houses and they force appreciation by remodeling it, right? But you can only do so much of those at a time, right? And the inventory is also
To
an
buy
issue.
right. Okay.
So what happens is that you have to have scalability. You have to have the right teams and processes in place. Even investors from if you start off and you're the ones trying to call absentee owners, right, or you're trying to do mailers, those investors that grow, even if it's from a wholesaling perspective, whatever, there's a lot of different ways to make money in real estate. But it's those people that actually focuses on their infrastructure with people, with
Okay.
processes, with systems, is where they can actually scale, right? So when you see, these top real estate investors, when you see these top real estate producers, is because they have a team and they have a specific task at hand, and they really are the CEO of their company. They're not just a real estate investor, right? So I think that utilizing the right systems and teams and putting them in place, I think, is one of the biggest deterrents.
Yeah, that brings up something. I joined the board of a company called Manna Straits. And this is an AI machine learning, and a lot of the properties there are off market.
Mm-hmm.
But now they have the visibility of those properties, and you can address it as a real estate investor to make some offers where you're really not competing. So, there's some smart technology out there that really can increase the profitability. And then there's another side of the platform where you can turn around and look at, if I put improvements into the property, how much can the rent go up? Based on the local market that you're in. And then the other side of it is, all right, I have a portfolio of X amount of doors. Say I've got, I don't know, 250 doors. When should I start exiting certain positions? So you're looking at sort of forecasting 3, 5 years out, but the software is helping you add intelligence to it to assist you to make these intelligent decisions, or at least have a good conversation on it. So, let's go back to another question here, which is really something you brought up that was really important. How can you build relationships quickly with people?
I think, yeah, listen, that's been something that I've been working on for 20 plus years. And it's one of the reasons why we've grown at a quick pace is because when I first meet a potential referral partner for
Mhm.
business, I don't even talk about my business, right? I just ask questions and I just shut up. We have an acronym and there's different acronyms, but you probably heard FROG, right? I talk about asking about their family, their relationships, their occupations, what is their goal. And I really just ask them questions about who they are, get to understand them. My first meeting, I rarely talk about myself and my
Okay.
business, right? If they ask questions, obviously I'm there to answer,
Mhm.
but I want to make sure that I'm interested in who they are and what their goals are so I can know how I can help them better, right? And quite honestly, everybody likes to talk about themselves, including me. So when somebody's asking questions about me and my background and where I'm going, I'm gonna like that person, right? Just because they're asking me questions, and that's how I start, all of my relationships. And I never ask for business. I try to give value, and give value so I can stay top of mind. And eventually I get that first crack at it. And now it's up to myself and my team to deliver and hit a home run. And I think if we go through that process and we get the opportunity and we do a nice job and we try to go above and beyond to give that service, I think now we're starting to build a nice solid foundation that can last, a lifetime. So I think, that initial conversation where you just get to know someone
Right on.
is crucial, right? And if especially if they're on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, right, I get to know a little bit more about who they are. Do they have dogs? Are they where they? I had 3 conversations today with new realtor referral partners in the area where I have a virtual assistant company, and they just basically call, right, our realtors, and they schedule them, and I just, I have a script and I talk to them, but most of it is just me talking to them, and they're 15-minute calls, and I was on the phone with one of them for 30 minutes, and we were talking about her daughter and and her niece that dances, and we had a connection through our daughters, right? So now we have a connection there, right? And I think that that's what we want to do. We want to look for a common ground and may not have to do anything with real estate or mortgages.
See, that builds on my next question. How do you differentiate yourself from your competition?
Yeah, I think that being an educator, being a someone that's going to help them grow their business and adding value, I think that that's something that when I talk to someone, it's always how can I help you,
Right.
right? What can I do? And by them following me on social media and getting to know who I am, we're on Spanish Channel Television in New Jersey, New York, every Sunday morning. And
Yeah,
last year,
I'm
I had
that.
I had 50 billboards across
Okay.
the state of New Jersey. So people, some people at least if they haven't heard of us or me, right, they sooner or later they will. And I think it's just really about, how can I add value to you? And then once we have the transaction, we really want, that white glove service, not only with their client, but also with my realtor partners. So that way they could be like, this is one of the best transactions, because in the end, if you close and they get their commission and they don't have any stress throughout the process, that's what's important, right? And in this business, that referral business is really the holy grail, right, of where we want to get to. So that's a very important process where that 30 days where we get somebody from, contract to closing, right, more or less, that we want that to be not just a transactional thing. We want to develop a relationship so that way we can have, 7 more purchases and or refinances down the road, right?
That's solid. What are the top tools you use to help manage your business?
First thing is people. I think, making sure that you hire the right people, you train them effectively, you give them autonomy, and you reward them correctly. You're going to really build a solid foundation, right? And then we have, good systems in place, right? So, I mentioned that, I've been working with virtual assistants for the last several years. And I said, you know what? I'm doing more coaching now. I'm part of a coaching program where I teach classes and people ask me about it. So I just started my own business. I said, well, you know what? Let me go ahead and start offering these services. So we use that, whether it's, creating, schedules or appointments in my calendar with potential referral partners, not only realtors, but, CPAs, attorneys, financial planners, right? I want to connect. I want people to know who I am. And also, if, I have 39,000 people in my CRM in my database, and now I have one that is calling these individuals, so that way they can schedule calls with myself or my team. So it's really I use people. So I have people that work for me in the office, but now at a fraction of a cost, I outsource, right, these virtual assistants. So now I'm running a bigger team at a lower cost. So I think that's key, and then having a great system to organize yourself on a daily basis. I'm a 5 a.m.er, Cliff.
You are up early.
I have to wake up early or else my day is gone, and I teach some goal setting classes. I have some great tools. I have, right behind me on the wall, I have a calendar, Jesse Eitzler's calendar. It's called the Big Ass Calendar, right? Excuse my language. And you look at, your year and you kind of see, right, your year from a bird's eye view, and you can start compartmentalize it, right, on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, and you start to really pinpoint, right, what goals you have, whether it's for your business. And business is only one spoke of the wheel of being successful, right? We have health and we have family and we have, right? So now we have to make sure that you look at the year, and are you spending enough time in all those spokes of the wheel so you can truly move towards success. So I think having a good system to keep track of those things, and a good planning system, right, and being able to delegate some things where your time isn't needed, I think that's important to be able to achieve those goals.
So you're really putting a lot of time into your team. You're leveling up their skills. And I had the privilege of watching a couple of YouTubes of you. You're passionate about educating the audience, and you provide a lot of high value. So, to my listeners, take the time to go out there and, Google, and you'll find a plethora of high value knowledge. And it's a privilege when you see somebody that's very, very giving and brilliant and executing. And you're doing two sides of this. So you got the real estate and the mortgage side. So you know exactly what's going on in that ecosystem. There's no question to it. You got your finger on the pulse. And the other idea, I interviewed somebody, actually it goes back probably over a year now. And he's in the business of buying mortgages that are non-performing assets, trying to keep people in their home. That's very benevolent. He'd make more money, not keeping them in the home, but in his DNA, there's a family there. They may have had some hardship. They got to talk straight. Budget needs to get created, and let's see if we can do a workout. And that's building the loyalty and the trust of that particular, that family, that homeowner at that point. So, not for everybody, but he'll buy tranches. It could be 250,000, depending on somewhere in that range of non-performing assets. Interesting. Is there anything I haven't touched on that you would like to add, Eric?
We talked about several businesses that I'm part of. And one of the things that I want to leave your listeners with is we fail, right? Many times before our first business can be successful. But I think that once you start getting that blueprint, you can really start taking those fundamentals and apply it to any business. So you can exit, right? You can start exiting from the businesses that you develop. And, just like anything else, is going to take a few years to be profitable in any business that you build. But now once you get it to a level where, it's performing and you really build that team and it's performing on its own, you're able to step away and now continue to build other businesses and really, focus your energies on things that you love and you enjoy. The things that I love spending time with my daughter and helping her develop as a music artist, right? We just released a single this past Tuesday. Tomorrow we're in Brooklyn, filming short form content so we
Okay.
can, send it out to TikTokers and use, right? And we have a plan in April to release her first music video. So I'm entrenched in it. I love it. And we talked about learning. I enrolled at NYU Tisch, the Clive Davis Institute of Recorded Music, and I'm learning about the music industry because if I want to manage my daughter, I want to always be learning, right? So you can take these fundamentals and you can apply it to as many businesses as you can, even if it's one at a time, so you can just really get some traction and really build those businesses. And you know all too well, right? I think that the average millionaire, right, or wealthy individual has 7 streams of income. And I think that if you build a business with thinking that you have to be in it or else it won't work, right? You can be very successful, right? But you're gonna go crazy doing that. And it's about really building it where you don't have to spend as much time in it.
Excellent.
Right? And these things are, transferable. And, I talk about, reverse, goal setting, reverse engineering, right? Having a good system to make sure that you hold yourself accountable to reach those goals. And you start learning these fundamentals and you can apply it to anything and you can apply it to the things you really enjoy, right? Which really gives value to your own life.
When you look at the goal setting, the universities, even the grade schools, the high schools, and the universities are not really teaching goal setting, which was a key piece of your life, let's say in my life also, and many of our listeners. Success is not an accident. A lot of us are self-made, so somebody, meaning us, took the initiative to go out there, get the education, to be accountable. So as we look at our children, the ability to bring that skill set in and to share what those early foundational decisions you made, be able to share that, that honesty with them. Hey, I had to learn, I made some mistakes. And here's what I learned from those mistakes and what that plan looked like. But we owned it. We took responsibility for that plan. As they say, the buck stops here. Well, I tell some of the young people, go into the bathroom, point the finger in the mirror. That's who's responsible. It's not your mom, not your dad. No, it's you. So I have seen some programs out there, my listeners may know it, but The Leader in Me from Stephen Covey. So the grandfather had passed, dad had passed, the 2 boys are running the company. And Joshua is running The Leader in Me, and it's empowering K through 12 students to take ownership of their education and write their goals down, meaning a lot of times it would be the next semester's grades in the different curriculums that they're learning. Getting up in front of the course, representing 4 students in a pod, and articulating whatever, it could be on history, math, in front of the classroom. So they're starting to feel more comfortable to articulate their views on it. They're eliminating some of the dysfunction in the classroom, meaning where the teacher's getting interrupted by disruptiveness, because the kids are there to learn. And then they take the Stephen Covey's knowledge and they bring it into the home, and the dynamics in the home improve. We're talking about the inner city. I mean, in this case, I was in Brooklyn and I was in the Bronx to see, great in elementary and also high school. And the children buy in. It's wonderful. And it's a privilege when you meet some winners out there that are building or passionately building something. It's unselfish. You look at something, the superintendents are buying in, the principals are buying in, the teachers are buying in, students are buying in, the parents are buying in. And to me, it's what left me a little really happy, really stunned was the children are leading the teacher parent conference. So the student is in the room responsible for the dynamics and what that itinerary is going to be between the teacher and their parents. We're starting to see that early management material being brought into their learning. And, it's a shame it's not just part of the curriculum, let's say, across the U.S., but I'm glad somebody made a positive impact. Eric, how can our listeners contact you? Are there any links you'd like to share?
Yeah, you can always contact me at Instagram, the Eric Estevez, EricEstevez. You can also reach me at my website, ericestevezalender.com, and I'll have all my socials in there as well. So those are the 2 best ways to contact me, Cliff.
Thank you so much for your time, Eric. Your advice on real estate investing is something anyone listening can benefit from. Thank you for sharing. I want to thank our listeners. I look forward to being back with you shortly for another episode of the Private Equity Profits Podcast. This show has been produced by Market Domination, LLC.